Meanwhile, tributes to honor veterans and those who died serving are also being held around Wisconsin. And in Manitowoc County, a group of volunteers working to restore gravestones from the Civil War.
This is really interesting. Two of them unveiled today. And there are plans to restore up to 20 more. New at 5, Jamal James learns more about the efforts to honor these veterans.
Seeing the final restorations of gravestones from two hometown heroes of the Civil War for Veterans Day at Evergreen Cemetery, the people behind the project say it's about preserving history.
It's important because it's important for the community. Our veterans sacrificed a lot.
Private John S. Tufts and Private Heinrich Henry Behrens, two farmers who joined the Union's 27th Wisconsin Infantry, Company D, in the 1860s.
One of them was gone for 3 years. He left his farm in Manitowoc. So who takes care of the farm? That's a lot of responsibility for a family, for the wife, and for the neighbors. I'm thinking they probably helped out too.
Manitowoc County Civil War Roundtable members like Jim Mallion took the time to learn more about the veterans laid to rest in their community.
They come from all walks of life. Some were lawyers, most of them were farmers, some were machinists, blacksmiths, working in the trades and stuff. They're just humans.
Every Civil War veteran had their records kept in a book with pages looking like this, showing their burial numbers and their name, also organized through their lot number, block number, and their section. Finding their resting spot with these 1800 cement markers.
Because the normal Civil War stones are worn out. You still can read some of them, and they're difficult to read. You might have to get out of your vehicle and take a look. But these new ones, they stick out.
Each one costing nearly $500 to restore, with the opportunity to keep a local hero's name alive. In Manitowoc, Jamal James, Action 2 News.